Let's talk. Why is my dog constantly pulling on leash and how to fix it? In my experience training dog, I think there are three main reasons why dogs pull, and depending on the reason comes the solution. So the first big reason is that you probably accidentally taught the dog to do it, or somebody who else is walking your dog. The second reason is that the dog's emotional state doesn't allow them to nicely, calmly walk on leash. And the third reason is that you are probably using the wrong walking equipment and the wrong length of the leash. Okay, let's unpack all of these things. So the first one, how is it possible that we can actually teach our dog to pull on the leash? None of us wants it. Why would we teach it? As I said, we do it accidentally. Usually it starts with the puppy. So when the puppy having a first walk outside, they are usually very overwhelmed and very excited about seeing the world. So at some point they're like, oh my God, let's go here. Oh my God, look what's happening. So if your first walk is on the leash with the puppy, and especially if it's a very short leash, the puppy will be naturally do like this, or they try to run around and you just running after them. Puppy, so you just let them do whatever. And this is not about letting or not letting your dog do whatever, but what I'm letting them to do right now and how it's going to end up when they're going to grow up and still do the same thing. So starting with puppies, we usually let them pull us towards other dogs, pull us towards people. Also, sometimes we take them for a very long walk. Sometimes people feel like if they live in the city, like, oh, let me take my puppy to the coffee shop. And then after coffee shop, I'm going to go to like another place with my puppy. And maybe I spend 2 hours out and about. So this is not a great way to teach your puppy how to walk on leash. Technically, you need to start in the house, just teach your puppy to be on leash, to be calm, to be relaxed. Because in the house, they don't have many things to do. So they will be more interested to actually just be relaxed and walking, and then they get used to be relaxed on the leash. Another way, instead of like walking on a busy street, take your puppy to a huge field, be in the middle of this field. Ideally, don't have any other dogs or people running around. Try to find an empty place. Have a long leash and let your puppy just explore the area around you, and then maybe slowly move to a little bit further. So you're not constantly walking and running after puppy. They actually learn to just explore and stay in one spot. When they grow up, they will not have a need that they are constantly rushing somewhere. What I noticed, like most pet parents do, and it's normal for us, if our dog starts going faster, we start speeding up. If our dog wants to sniff the ground, we just like, okay, let's go, because we already are in a certain speed, in a certain groove. Dogs don't walk with a constant speed, but sometimes we just get used to walk in the same speed, so the dog doesn't get to sniff the ground. When they pull towards something, we let them pull because we run behind them, so we end up with the dog who doesn't stop, doesn't smell, doesn't explore the area. They just rush somewhere. I used to professionally walk dogs before I became a dog trainer, and I was surprised how many dogs are almost like neurotic when they're outside. They're just unable to enjoy the walk. They're just like constantly pacing in a very high speed. So I understand if you're struggling with a dog who's pulling the leash. I've been there. I know what it is, especially when it's a larger dog or very like a rambunctious dog, reactive dog. What is the solution in this case? First, you have to pay attention how you walk your dog, because a lot of stuff depends on you as a handler. If your dog is pulling towards another person, another dog, something interesting, so they're rushing towards that, and you have to speed up and almost run after that, don't do it. So if you have to run to match up your dog's speed, that means you're doing something wrong. Ideally, in this situation, either completely stop, so your dog is aware that pulling you is not going to get them anywhere. Or sometimes it also happens, let's say you have the same route every day. Let's say you walk a little bit and then you get to some like park where they play with dogs. So they will be rushing towards this park. So what you're going to do instead, you're going to completely change your routine. You're going to change direction. You're going to change different routes. So you pay attention where your dog tends to go faster, and you're not going to go there. You're going to go somewhere else. Paying attention to whether your dog pulls all the time or they actually only pull towards certain places or in a certain direction can be very crucial. Most of the time we don't pay attention to this, but for example, in case of this dog in the video, when I started walking this dog, I realized that if you go towards one area, dog will consistently pull, but if you actually turn around and go backwards, the dog immediately stops pulling. So the solution for this particular dog, at least a quick solution, just choose where to walk the dog and don't go in the places where my dog would be more likely to pull. At least this way they don't rehearse pulling and don't make it worse by repeating this behavior over and over again. Instead, they actually learn to slow down and enjoy the walk, sniff the ground, and stuff like that. I remember I was walking a dog who had a very established routine. So every time you would take them around the block, they would walk very fast. So what I did instead, I would walk to the building across the street. There was like a nice apartment complex with lots of green areas, trees and bushes, and we just stayed the whole time there. So the dog actually started exploring the area. They would sniff the ground, they would like check the bushes, they pee and stuff. But if you take them to the street, they start charging. Sometimes you need to change the place. So the more greener and open the area is, the more interesting stuff is for the dog to smell, the more likely they will slow down. On the streets, especially when it's just concrete jungle and no green area, it might be more tempting for them to go faster. Okay, let's say you brought your dog to some green area. You're just staying in this big field, trying to encourage your dog to sniff around and explore, but your dog just pulls forward for no reason. In this case, I would actually sometimes use treats to encourage them sniffing, and I would play a find it game. I would grab a treat, I would toss it in the grass and say, find it, and let my dog explore. If your dog has hard time finding it, or they're so busy, distracted, like, oh, where is it? You can start by tossing it in front of them, and then eventually start making it more complicated, hiding it. I can sometimes hide it in some tree branch when there's like a bunch of leaves. I can toss it and cover with a tree leaf so that my dog has to make an effort. So basically, I'm teaching the dog that the walk is not you rushing straight. The walk is for you to stop and explore the area. So we're going to change the area. We're going to change how we do it. So we're not going to reinforce the dog by letting us pull somewhere. With some dogs, what can work, it doesn't work with all dogs, but you can try. So if your dog starts like walking very fast to the point that the leash is very tight, so you just stop and wait. And as soon as the leash is loose, you continue to walk. You don't say anything to the dog. You don't look at them. Your dog pulls, the leash is tense. You stop. You don't move any further. The leash goes loose. Continue to go. So the dog eventually learns when the leash is tight and she's pulling, it doesn't get you anywhere. If the leash is nice and loose, then the walk continues. And so what essentially this exercise does to some dogs, as I said, they quickly learn that in order to continue the walk, in order to prevent stopping, they just need to keep the leash loose. It also will depend how well you are doing this exercise. If you're not doing it correctly, the dog will have a hard time learning. If you take example with the dog in the video, this dog in particular learned really quick. First, the dog was pulling a lot. I did like a couple of minutes of stopping constantly. Eventually, the dog learned how to keep the leash loose. As I said, it works for some dogs. It absolutely doesn't work for other dogs. If your dog is overexcited, overstimulated, or just needs longer time to understand this connection, or if you're not doing it correctly, the dog will just pull harder, and eventually you're going to give up, and the dog going to learn like, oh, I just have to pull harder. Or sometimes people give up, they stop, and then they continue to walk when the leash is still tight. So many things can go wrong. But again, it's worth trying it. But if it doesn't work for your dog, don't insist on it. Just pay attention that if my dog pulls towards something, I don't let them pull. Of course, in this case, you're not staring at your phone. You're not like watching TikToks and trying to walk the dog. You leave your phone at home ideally, or turn it off, put it in a pocket, and you actually enjoy this time with your dog. You are very engaged. You pay attention where they're running, why they're running in this area much faster, and another area they're more relaxed. Maybe you need to change where you walk your dog. Maybe you need to change the duration of the walks and stuff like this. I mean, this is a very quick tip. I guess it will need probably another separate video on that, but for now, try it. If it doesn't work, leave a comment. Okay, let's talk about the second reason. So the second reason why your dog might be pulling on the leash, and sometimes you would notice these dogs, they're constantly choking, they're like this usually means that your dog has a certain like heightened emotional state when they're outside. It can be a dog who is very reactive, who reacts to seeing other people, other dogs. They just get very stressed and nervous being outside. Some dogs that we call usually dogs environmentally sensitive. That means like whatever happens in the environment makes them extremely sensitive, makes them extremely nervous. Like there is a loud sound, there is a like, I don't know, weird object, and somebody's like rolling the garbage bin and the dog is completely freaking out. So again, the dog has a certain emotional state. Especially you would notice when the dog is really like easy in the house, like very calm and relaxed, and when you take them outside, they like completely like a nuts. So usually that means being outside really changes something in their emotional state and they can't really handle it. So in this case, the tip that I gave you before might help, but might not help, because first you need to deal with emotional state. Like, let me give you an example. Imagine I need to have a speech in front of a huge audience, and maybe I'm introverted, I don't like public speaking, I have like a stage fright, I'm actually terrified to be in public. So of course I'm going to be so frantic, so jittery, nervous. So that means unless you can change my emotional state about this, or you can slowly introduce me to public speaking, I'm not going to just chill and relax. So in this case, we need to work with the emotional state. We need to figure out why my dog is stressed being outside. If my dog is fearful, then I need to work on building confidence. If my dog is scared of sounds, different objects, I need to desensitize my dog to scary things. If my dog is reactive to other people, I either need to walk my dog in empty areas or work on counter-condition desensitization protocols, so my dog doesn't feel so weird being around people. The same if my dog is barking at other dogs, that means like they have some big feelings about dogs. We need to work on that too. In terms of walking reactive dogs, I just did a video last week about that, how to walk reactive dog. We need to reduce the amount of stressors. We need to reduce the amount of triggers. Sometimes it means we need to take our dog to a different place. If my dog is terrified being in an urban environment, then that means like maybe I only take her for a very short, like 10-15 minutes walk just to go potty. But then once a day, I drive somewhere to like very quiet, nice park and walk my dog there. And in this case, I can start paying attention. Is my dog more relaxed when I take them, let's say, hike in the park versus in the urban environment? To learn to understand your dog emotional state, whether they're calm or not, whether they're scared or not scared, you'll have to learn the dog's body language. I will leave a link to few resources on that topic. And the third reason why your dog might be pulling on leash, because something is going on with the equipment. So the first one, if your dog is the one who's constantly choking, like let's say you walk them on the collar and they like this because they're pulling hard, you have to start with changing the equipment. First of all, it's very harmful for the dog. If your dog is constantly pulling on the leash, they might end up with serious health complications, because this is a very sensitive area for the dog. To start with changing the equipment, you will need a good fitting harness. If you have a larger dog to the point so they pull so hard you can have hard time controlling them, look into no pull harness. So the harness prevents from pulling because it has a connector in here. The leash connects to the front of the dog, so when the dog starts pulling and like the leash gets tight, they almost naturally turn back around towards you. It will not fix the pulling completely, so don't think of it like as a quick fix. It can be advertised sometimes like a quick fix. It doesn't really work this way, but at least it will be easier for you. The dog is not like choking herself or himself. If you don't have a super large, hard to control dog, you can just get a good anatomical harness. For example, like one of my favorites is like Blue 9 harnesses. They're called balance harnesses. So they have like several straps. They have a strap here, they have a strap there, and evenly distributed for the whole body, not like on the neck. Because if the dog has physical discomfort, it almost like becomes like a vicious circle. So the more they pull, the more they choke themselves, and the more they choke themselves, the more they get like heightened and overstimulated, and the more they're going to pull. And for this particular reason, using choke chains, slip leads, prong collars are not ideal, because you still create physical discomfort and it doesn't get rid of the issue, it just creates other issues like long term. And just in general, I have to say that relying on prong collars or even relying on no pull harnesses to resolve the issue is not a good idea. You need to address the reason of the pulling and do the training. You can absolutely fix the pulling problem. You just need to devote your time and energy to training your dog out of it. So what else we need to talk about, which is even more important than the harness? Most of the time, the dogs pull on the leash because us as dog handlers, we don't give them enough leash freedom. So if you have a 6-foot leash, let's say this is 6 foot, and you constantly clutching leash by your dog's neck and pulling towards you because the dog is pulling away and you're trying to pull them back, or sometimes, the dog wants to go like sniff, explore, pull towards other dogs, and we get annoyed by this and we're like, no, this, no, don't. The reason the dog pulls in this situation, and it's very like, maybe not intuitive for most of us dog owners, but that's what it is. And I've seen it proven many times working with dogs, training dogs. You need to give the dog more leash freedom. So you need to start, first of all, stop clutching the leash and stop constantly pulling the dog towards you. Especially if your dog is exploring the ground, they're sniffing, they're like checking like things in the environment, especially when they're not even going anywhere. I still see many pet parents like holding the leash very tight. So the first solution is you need to start paying attention to what you're doing. As soon as you clutch the leash, and it's normal, it's very like instinctual for us. We're like, something happens, we're like, oh, make sure the dog is there. Breathe in, breathe out, and let the leash be loose. Also give your dog more freedom. So instead of wrapping this leash around like this and walking your dog this way, unwrap it, grab the end of the leash, and keep attention that's always loose. Again, if you bring your dog to a very busy environment, lots of people, lots of other dogs, and try whatever I tell you, you probably end up on the dog who's constantly pulling like this. So you need to start with the quiet areas. Go to like a quiet street where there are no other dogs, some like back alley. Go to some parking lot after the store is closed, like maybe it's a school, maybe it's a shopping mall, maybe it's a grocery store, after or before the store is open, so when there are no like people there, and teach your dog and learn yourself how to keep the leash loose. Ideally get a longer leash and not a flexi leash, not a like a retractable leash. That's a bad idea, and I'll say why in a second. Get just a flat long leash, maybe 10 feet, maybe 12 feet, maybe 15 feet, so it's going to be around like 5 meters if you're in a city environment, and start slowly giving your dog more leash. Again, I probably have to make another video because I just want this video to be 1 hour long. So I have an article on my website about long lines, and maybe at some point I will make a video and I will just list it down below. So when you have a long leash, again, you don't wrap it like this, but you just hold it like this. So like this, you just hold it this way, and then when you need to give your dog more leash, you just like unravel it like this. When you need to bring your dog close to you, you just walk towards your dog, collect the leash, and like this. Unfortunately, long line requires a little bit of practice. First time you're gonna do it, you're gonna be like, okay, that's the worst advice, Stella, thank you, but this is horrible advice. But trust me, every person who started walking their dogs on a long leash will tell you that their life changed forever. I would say it's probably the best invention for dogs. The reason why I don't recommend people the retractable leash, I mean, to people who have dogs who pull, because the problem with retractable leash that in order for the dog to get like some freedom to move around and explore, they need to pull. So basically a retractable leash just creates more pulling. So that doesn't teach the dog the concept of the loose leash. Plus, it's very dangerous because it can wrap around the leg, because it's usually very like narrow string. I'm not going to even go in there. Just in general, if you want to learn how to properly walk your dog, retractable leash will unfortunately not teach you that. Get a simple flat nylon leash. They're like less than $10 on Amazon. So it's something that doesn't require lots of, don't get an expensive one. When you get better with the leash and you will understand, do you need 15 feet or 20 feet or 30 feet, then invest in a good one. Just get a cheap one for now while you're training. And last but not least, which goes to first and second and third advice, the reason why many dogs pull on leash, because we don't let them to sniff. I see like every day how people are such in a rush, they're staring in their phones, they're trying to go from A to B, they think like, oh, we need to cover, I don't know, 2 miles with my dog. But dogs, they don't care about mileage. The reason they go outside, because they need to explore the world. They need to enrich their senses. They need to have some mental stimulation. And they can get this stimulation through seeing things, through smelling things, through touching things, through hearing things. Especially smell, because the dogs, they can smell like 40,000 times better than us. So when we deprive them on smelling things and exploring things, we're making their life miserable. That's why they start pulling, because they get so frustrated, because they're like, okay, if I can't do whatever makes me enjoy this walk, I might as well just like pretend I'm a sled dog who is like pulling a sled. So let your dog sniff. Lots of people say like, I don't like my dog sniffing the pee. What if it's dirty there? But they're dogs. That's how they are. If you want your dog to be happy to be a dog, you have to let them sniff. And the next thing, you have to stop and wait as much as they need. When you get out with your dog, it's not for you, it's for your dog. So instead of going for 40 minutes and just letting your dog drag you around for 40 minutes, spend 20 minutes on a very quality walk. Go somewhere where there are no other people, no other dogs, and just let your dog smell the area, explore, let them touch things, climb on things, sniff things, look at things here. If your dog is like perked up staring at something, don't pull this like, let's go, let's go, let's go. No, let them explore the world. 20 minutes of high quality enriching walks give them more than 1 hour or 1 hour and a half just like running around the block. It's very important. That's why you have a dog. Otherwise you had a fish.